Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, dear colleagues. Good morning, dear friends. I would like to welcome you all to this specialized Silk Road webinar entitled Investments and the Tourism Ecosystem, Opportunities, Challenges, and the Role of Silk Road Tourism. I would also like to welcome all registered participants who are with us via Zoom or via UNWTO Academy's YouTube channel. I'd like to begin by thanking UNWTO Academy for all the technical support in organizing this specialized Silk Road webinar. And of course, I would also like to thank all panelists and speakers today. Mr. Suman Villa, the Director of the Technical Cooperation and Silk Road Department, Mr. Paco Boerbaum, CEO of Soent, one of our speakers today, and Miguel Angel Figueroa from the UNWTO Innovation Investments and Digital Transformation Department, who will be representing the department here today. And later on, we will connect with Ms. Natalia Bayona, the director of said department, for her intervention also. So welcome you all and thank you very much for your time. Why are we organizing this specialized Silk Road webinar? Well, as you all know, from recent UNWTO data, international tourist arrivals fell by 65% in the first 6 months of 2020. Currently, as you all know, we are facing a global tourism crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic. While UNWTO is leading the tourism response, what we want to do with this webinar today is, while we start from a necessary COVID response, we want to look at the broader picture, what will happen in the short, medium, and long term. And when we actually have a look at how tourism will evolve in the future, especially within the UNWTO region, we come to the conclusion that investments, both public and private, will be essential. It'll be an essential tool for guaranteeing sustainable tourism development in the future. So basically, what we wanted to do with today's webinar is get both invite speakers to provide us their approach on how we can basically foster tourism investments globally, but also within the Silk Road. And for this, we have two main speakers. On the one hand, Paco Boerbaum, who will actually present the private sector's view on how to foster tourism investments along the route. And then, of course, the video message of Ms. Natalia Bayona, who will basically explain UNWTO's global approach towards tourism investments. So this is just a very quick overview, and now I would like to give the floor to our director, Mr. Suman Villa, who will frame this overall webinar and provide us with a few key details in order to get started. So, Mr. Villa, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here in this seminar, which is aptly being conducted on critically looking at investment opportunities along the Silk Road. Your presence here today demonstrates that we all have a commitment to the idea of a unified Silk Road, and there is much to be gained by cooperating amongst ourselves. We have three wonderful speakers today, and I would like to welcome them, Mr. Paco Boerbaum, Ms. Natalia Bayona, and Patrick Fritz, who's been a part of the Silk Road and whom most of you know already. And they have all been working on the Silk Road and have interesting perspectives on all three of them. So I'm very keen to listen to the insights that they bring. Now, all of us know that the Silk Road is the greatest route that has ever been traversed by mankind. It spans from Western Europe into the Far East, and it's a great example of how transnational cooperation can happen to develop a product that is common, but which benefits every state which participates in it. I think there is no greater example of cooperation than Silk Road can be on how countries can come together to be able to realize the potential of tourism and thereby to give better livelihoods, offer better livelihoods for their people. But the idea of the Silk Road is still, is not really fleshed out. It is still mostly in the form of an idea, and that's largely because we do not have a very concrete Silk Road which are fleshed out into itineraries. And this is happening because of a lack of supporting infrastructure. The idea of the Silk Route is very enigmatic, is very romantic, and I'm sure anybody who hears about the Silk Route would like to travel alongside it. But in order to be able to convert that aspiration into reality of travel, we need to have the supporting infrastructure for people to be able to stay, which means that we need to have the hotels for people to stay. We need to be able to put beds at destinations. We need to have restaurants where people can eat. We need to have entertainment centers, and the entire ecosystem needs to come around. And I think the way that we will be able to do this is not to sort of address this idea on a broad intellectual abstract way. I think the way that we will need to do is to look at what is the main or the most pragmatic way to build a backbone for the Silk Road. If we are able to connect key destinations into a tangible itinerary and put beds there and bring in the necessary investments, and if we use a cluster approach method, I'm sure that we will be able to create a Silk Road, the backbone of the Silk Road, and then the success of that can easily get ramped up to other destinations as we go along. So I think we need to start thinking more in terms of putting something on the ground and identify the most critical areas and making the intervention where that needs to happen. Now, this was the plan that we have been working on along with both of my colleagues, Patrick and Nikos. We've done a survey of the members, and we've looked at what is it that they want to do. So while all that work is happening, COVID has actually brought rudely interrupted our plans. And by all accounts, the UNWTO estimates that international tourist arrivals will drop by 60 to 80% this year, which effectively means in numbers that there will be 1 billion travelers less traveling. There will be 1 trillion less in terms of tourism exports. And in terms of job losses, we're going to be looking at anywhere between 100 million to 120 job losses. And the International Monetary Fund says that the tourism, that the global economy is likely to contract by 4.8%. So I think from the way we look at it now, I think it's going to be anywhere between 2 to 3 years for the sector to be able to bounce back. But one thing we are all sure about now, and by this time we are pretty clear about it, is that the sector will not be the same once it returns back to normal. We are going to look at a sector which is going to be more responsible, which is going to be more sustainable. Largely, that's going to happen because of changing consumer preferences. And when consumer preferences change, the government policies will also move in tandem. So I think we are going to be seeing a big push towards sustainability. We'll probably see destinations moving towards zero carbon footprint, zero food miles, factoring in environmental costs beyond the economic costs, how to center stage communities in everything that we do, how do we achieve gender balance, how do we create opportunities for our youth in the tourism sector. And I think overall we will be moving towards more meaningful experiences. So I think there is going to be a shift between what was originally thought of as mass market. I think we will be moving towards something that is more meaningful and that is more sustainable and that is more responsible. And therefore, if we assume that this shift in preferences is going to happen and that government policies are going to move in that direction, I think we need to re-envision the Silk Road from that perspective. Because the old normal is not the way that new business is going to happen. And it also gives us an opportunity for us to look at where we are at present and which way the world is going, and see as to how we want to position the Silk Road and how we want to develop it as as we go forward. And I think I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that whatever intervention we make to build the Silk Road up from here, it has to be based on the principles of responsibility and sustainability, and it has to support communities and local economies. So I think when we look at this context, we also need to look at few concomitant areas that we need to work on. One is how do we ensure that the ease of travel is improved, and I think the whole lot of visa system which is there, and how do we ensure that people from different countries are able to travel seamlessly with the least amount of hassle. We need to develop newer products which will take into account the infrastructure development that will come up in different parts. And we also need to look at research, because everything that we do has to be based on significant amount of research to ensure that we make the right decisions. But I think to be able to bring this into play, the most critical element is going to be investments. Today, we already know that the Silk Road alignment, as we know, has been receiving extraordinary amounts of investments in terms of public infrastructure. We see that there is a whole new play which is happening in terms of ports, in terms of roadways, in terms of railway lines. That's happening largely because there's also a big resource at play in these areas. And most of the public infrastructure is being built either on government funding or on international financial institutions. So I think we already have a critical mass of public infrastructure that is being built, which we can leverage. I think what we need to do is to see as to how we can reorient some of that towards enabling private infrastructure to come up. And in terms of private infrastructure, as I've said before, I think the most critical thing is to ensure how we put beds at destination so that people are able to stay and then create the entire ecosystem which will automatically come around it. And I think to enable private infrastructure, we need to have predictable policies, we need to have clear policies which offer investors a clear visibility on what to expect and what tenures of time are their projects likely to come about. How do we ensure that with time efficiency, with economic efficiency, and how do we also ensure that the investments that come are best to help and support the local economies. So I think if we are able to get this public infrastructure, reorient it towards tourism sector, and if we are able to enable private infrastructure, we will in fact usher in the next level of development for tourism in the world. And I have no doubt that if we do it well, we will be building a strong and meaningful example of how countries can come together and collaborate creatively to ensure that everybody gets benefited by it. I would like to once again thank our stellar speakers that we have today. Mr. Paco Bobom is from the private sector. He's made several investments and he's worked in this space extensively. So I'll be very keen to listen to the interesting insights that he brings. Ms. Natalia Bayona is a director at the United Nations World Tourism Organization. She looks after investments and digital transformation. And she brings a lot of passion to her job. She's unable to join us today, but she is joining us over video. And Patrick, of course, has been working on the Silk Road for several years, and he's very well versed with it. So we look forward to listening to his expertise. And I also have my colleague Nikos, who is on the call today, and he will respond if there are any questions and that merit him to come. So I wish you all very fruitful deliberations. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Biller, for introducing the topic and for basically explaining why investments are so important if we are to drive a Silk Road tourism experience that is viable and that actually comes and enriches the overall visitor experience. Before I move over to my presentation, I just want to mention that all those participants can send us their questions, any questions that they may have throughout this webinar in the chat section of this webinar. Please send us your questions there, and my colleague Nikos, he will be in charge of filtering the questions, and which we will then answer at the end of all the interventions of the panelists. I would now would like to share my my presentation with you all. Can you see it? Is it available? No. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, basically, my intention with this presentation is to keep it short and simple, so not to take too much time away from our other panelists. What I intend to do is basically explain maybe in a slightly more detail what Mr. Biller mentioned before, is in terms of what exactly are we doing on the Silk Road in order to foster investments and to make investments happen along the Silk Road. My central message hereby is the following. The Silk Road countries are bearers of unique heritage from which a powerful, innovative, and highly adaptable tourism concept can emerge. The Silk Road stands out and as such has the potential to enrich the tourism offer of participating countries and drive development that is responsible, sustainable, and competitive. However, important challenges remain that must be overcome if we are to realize the ideal of a seamless Silk Road travel experience. Such an ideal will necessitate the commitment of all Silk Road member states, sister UN organizations, in addition to a broad range of public and private stakeholders from the tourism sector and beyond. But it will also necessitate of investments, both public and private. We need to raise awareness of the Silk Road as an investment opportunity, whereby the maxim should not be to raise investments to spend more, but to raise investments in order to spend better. That is, channeling funds capable of supporting the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Our belief hereby is that tourism is the perfect tool to do so. However, how do we move from theory to practice? Well, no question, and as mentioned before, the containment of the COVID-19 pandemic dominates the tourism agenda and will inevitably change the socioeconomic fabric of our societies, including our previous travel patterns. Applied to the Silk Road, this translates into a reassessment of our priorities, needs, and necessities of our member states, something that we have been working on and that is to culminate with the adoption of a new Silk Road action plan. However, first of all, we needed a clear mapping of ongoing opportunities and challenges. Because despite unquestionable potential, the Silk Road as a transnational tourism concept requires of a stronger and more coordinated focus. The sheer overextension of the routes results in many interests, needs, and development stages that cannot be effectively assessed by a single global Silk Road tourism approach. While the clustering of the Silk Road has allowed us to move forward by narrowing the approach and grouping neighboring countries together that share similar interests and needs, the plurality of the Silk Road tourism concept, the regional footprint of many Silk Road activities, the need to compete within a fierce marketplace, and the prevalence of macro issues affecting but not directly dealt with by the tourism sector, such as transport, infrastructure, energy, communications, security, among others, remain as development barriers. This being said, however, the emergence of new ideas and traveler needs paired with novel instruments capable of fulfilling said needs create a fertile environment for the emergence of transnational tourism initiatives, an area in which Silk Road countries have a competitive advantage and are set to prosper. Oh, sorry. So basically, based on this ongoing assessment, what we have done is redefine our work under three main pillars: Silk Road knowledge creation, Silk Road development strategies, and Silk Road investments and stakeholder mobilization, whereby today I'll solely focus on pillar three, the investment component. Let it be stated firstly that a more balanced world in terms of growth and development, the increase in connectivity, and the recognition of the strategic importance of the Silk Road region justifies our effort to place sustainable tourism development on the global policy map, and in particular Silk Road tourism as a profitable investment opportunity. This is the objective of this new strategic pillar: to channel and make investments along the Silk Road viable through tourism. In achieving such an objective, we are still at an initial information gathering phase, and yet some initial thoughts and ideas on the way forward can already be shared. For example, the tourism sector heavily depends on barrier-free connections within and between Silk Road countries. Ongoing investment in connectivity is fundamental for tourism and trade growth, which furthermore has a broad economic spillover effect. The regional integration of national transport infrastructure and transport services needs to be increased in order to reduce the risks of stranded infrastructure and delays in cross-border investment projects. Moreover, the trans-border potential of projects must be highlighted, as these are usually more difficult to finance due to the unevenness of risks, benefits, and costs. Development based on FDI has the potential to improve market awareness, economic stability, skill levels, and the transfer of knowledge. Moreover, it has been stipulated that a one-day decrease in trading times would increase exports among corridor economies by 5.2% on average, and a 10% decrease in trading times is associated with a 12% increase in FDI flows. Unfortunately, however, FDI flows by region and countries are unevenly distributed within the Silk Road region, with certain countries along the route facing difficulties in attracting investments. And I sincerely hope that Paco's intervention will allow us to shine some light on how these countries can actually raise their investment potential. But also similarly in terms of trade, performances are unbalanced and limited by national borders. So tourism corridors may offer a strong development perspective for countries on the lower income end. As to project development and planning, public and private tourism stakeholders increasingly recognize the importance of cooperation, and yet much remains to be done to enhance profitable public-private partnerships. Sharing knowledge and good practices between governments, the private sector, academia, and civil society will be vital for tourism to unlock its full potential, and this is exactly what we aim to achieve with our work. For a start, here you can see top priority areas per pillar, as brought forward by our member states and close Silk Road tourism partners. Important here is not to view these activities separately, but as a whole, as a comprehensive development strategy that will be advanced simultaneously. Just to provide you an example, the gathering of necessary Silk Road tourism data included within a tourism master plan will be essential for developing Silk Road product portfolios, which could then be adequately promoted via Silk Road events, tourism fairs, and similar. Today, all this remains to be done, yet this webinar can already be considered an important step in this sense. For one, and as already mentioned, we will learn of UNWTO's global investment strategy, from which we will extract valuable lessons as to available possibilities and tools. And this will be followed up by a presentation of UNWTO Silk Road Task Force member Paco, who will frame the overall scene by providing us with the investors' insight on such an important topic. I would like to take this opportunity once again to reiterate my gratitude to all speakers for being here today, and basically pass the floor after this directly to Paco, who is our key speaker, so to say, on how to raise private investments along the Silk Road. Basically, Paco introduced a very initial, very interesting thought when we started talking about, when we started to plan this webinar, and he was actually saying to me, like, market liquidity is fully available. Despite the crisis situation, there is a lot of liquidity available. What investors are actually looking like is for important, interesting strategies and products to invest in. So you're saying, so on the one hand, we were saying liquidity is available, but on the other hand, countries or some countries are failing to attract investments. And what Paco is going to provide us some insights on today is how to connect these two these 2 points, how to raise investments, to provide an investor's perspective on what investors are looking at, what countries need to do in order to attract these investments. So after providing you with basically a very broad, very short overview of what we're doing in terms of the Silk Road Tourism Department, I would like to conclude my presentation here and to pass the floor on to Paco, who will move forward with his presentation. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the ongoing discussion. Oh, Paco, you must unmute. Yes. Paco, please, you must unmute. We can't hear you.
Oh, now you hear me?
Yes, now okay. Perfect.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Ms. Sibylla, for your words and for your presentation, Patrick. And yes, we're talking here about the Silk Road, something that is really amazing. What I will try to do is to break it down to come to a point where we can definitely see clear investment opportunities, or how we can follow up these investments, how we can structure this investment. And I will share now my presentation. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I agree with you, Patrick, and I said it before, the COVID has made a big change in our lives, and it has not taken away the money from the market. I have the perception that there is a lot more money on the market, not only from the private sector, but also from the public sector, that a lot of countries are pushing money into the market. So to overcome this COVID situation that we have, and it's doing a lot of harm. But I am also seeing that having the necessity of staying at home, of not going to work the way we used to do, of not being able to travel the way we used to do, it's also accelerating changes in the tourism sector, in the way we do vacation, the way we go to work when we are on traveling, the way we are designing new products that will be in the future there. So I believe that even though the bad part of the COVID is there, it also means an opportunity for the future, also regarding new technologies. So in the agenda, I will present the company, talk a little bit about the Silk Road, and then concentrate on the investment challenges. The Soent Group is a company based in Germany. We have a real estate department where we develop, we manage, and we are partners because we also invest with other investors. So we're co-investors. We do asset management for investing in mainly in Central Europe, although we have some projects in Central Asia. And then we have the tourism development, the sustainable tourism, I like to call it. We look and develop master plans, and we do destination management. We have been for over 20 years on the market. We have a team of experts from different countries. We have our own architectural team, and we have access to capital markets. So the Silk Road. Yes, it is a natural cultural attractiveness, no doubt about it. It is mystic and magical, and it has a lot of hidden treasures. This is the Silk Road. Most of the people think about it once we talk about the Silk Road. But there is another Silk Road. That's One Belt, One Road. This is a new development from, let's say, China, from the Far East to Central Europe. And what we're seeing here is Duisburg, is the city in Germany, or the town where all the trains from China arrive. Actually, there are about close to 200 trains a week that are arriving there. It's not a big sum, but you can already see the expansion. You can already see the investment. For instance, the first Chinese hotel is being developed in Duisburg. So the interest to create is there. And we are also developing some real estate products in this area related to the Silk Road, the other kind of Silk Road. And when you talk about Germany, you don't have Germany as a Silk Road destination. But as you can see, with the new Silk Road, it is. And this means that not only in Germany, the whole way from this point up to China, it's a long, long way with a lot of investment opportunities along this way. So we have two major facts here. One is the One Belt, One Road, the infrastructure that's there. The other side is the touristic part. So we go to the investment challenges. We have three major points: investment security, profitability, and sustainability. So we have to very carefully look at these 3 points, because there is a lot of money there, but you need a basis to be able to control these and to give them the opportunity to invest. So what do I mean about investment security? We need a legal framework. We need to know that the money moves around the world very fast. We have heard people that are involved in the stock exchange move money back and forth. We saw the stock exchange falling down dramatically when the COVID came. Shortly after that, it was completely recovered again. So the money has no place to go. This is my explanation to it. So people pull the money out of the stock exchange and then they bought everything again. So there is a lot of money down there. So we need a legal framework that when we talk to an investor, we can explain him, listen, your money is secure over here. And then, of course, we need a master plan with an infrastructure. If I want to build a hotel, I want to know what's going to be on the side of the hotel. Are you going to have there a factory or will it be another hotel? So I need the security looking into the future. I need this master plan that assures me that my investment will be secure. So looking at the profitability, we have here a very important aspect. We talk about an operator. Yes, an operator is very, very important. The operator is the company that is giving my return on investment. And we want to have that on a long-term basis. So when the money comes in, I know it's being well taken care of the property and I get my money every month and every year. But please don't forget, an operator is not a real estate developer. An operator is not a product developer. So we have to develop a product, we have to develop a real estate concept that's efficiency and sustainable looking into the future. So this development has to be done before the developer, before the operator comes in and takes over. And this is one thing we do, and we can discuss about all these matters further on. But this is the profitability of the invested money. Then we go to a long-term sustainability, ecological friendly building, third-party usability. Okay, when we talk about ecologically friendly building, yes, we constantly hear that buildings have to be constructed in a way that we don't harm the environment. But this is already known, and this is what we always try to do. But we go one step farther than this. We have the social aspects of the building. We have the sustainability in the social aspect. What does that mean? That means that people that are living in there, people that are on vacation, people that go for a business trip and are in these hotels or in these buildings, they're changing their way of doing holiday. They're changing their way of doing business travel. They have other necessities. We have the millennials that already are about 20, a little bit more than 20% of the global market. And they travel differently. They have their computer, they need co-working spaces, they need other kind of leisure. It's all these changes have to be included from the first thoughts of what we want to develop. So we have the social aspect in there and the sustainability, looking from the people's aspect into the future. So looking at all this, putting it together, we have the ecologically, financially, and social aspects. So now we go to solutions. What do we have here? We have a master plan. We have a legal framework. We have an infrastructure, and we have operators. But all of these has to be coordinated. It has to be coordinated through an international destination manager and developer. Why do I call it international? I call it international because you have an operator that can come from one country. You have an investor or several investors that come from different countries. You have infrastructure needs that not necessarily are being done by companies from the country. You have technology that you import. So it is very international. Every time we talk about tourism and about this kind of development, it's very international. And once you coordinate all of these, once you have a place where the investor can get the whole information, then you negotiate with the investor, and then you can see and approach the investor. So what does this international destination manager and developer does? It coordinates and it adapts the legal framework, the financial incentives that we have to create for the tourism. It coordinates the general master plans, the infrastructure needs, and we talk here, when we talk about infrastructure, a modular development of infrastructure. So we have been advising several countries in Central Asia. And when we talk about the infrastructure that's needed to develop tourism, if I have a piece of land, of course, I need a road to be able to get to the land. And this is an infrastructure, this costs money, but this is money that I am well invested in my own country. But when we talk about this infrastructure, we have a system here in Germany that it's been applied on community basis, on once an airport is being developed and so on, that we do it modular. We do a minimum and then we continue developing step by step as the necessity of infrastructure is growing. So we start with this minimum investment on infrastructure with a plan for the future, looking at the development of the tourism, looking at the development of the real estate and the necessities that's being created along the way. We know that the resources of the countries are not always there. It's not always easy. That's why we also look at a public-private partnership, also into the infrastructure by the step by step. So it is very important, the coordination between investor, operator, and government. And this is an agency that has to be created. I have been in many countries trying to find information, trying to coordinate different things, trying to put things together. And it is very, very difficult in many times, in many places, because there is not a clear structure to it. Once we are able to coordinate all this, to put all this together, as I said before, I have not seen a development here in Central Europe that has not gained a proper finance. There are enough investment funds, there are enough private investors that are looking for investment, and they all get their investors. But you have to do the steps we discussed before. You have to create a product. You have to bring the governmental side, the operational side. You have to bring it all together. Once you have this, the investor is there and he will be willing, because his money is secure. He's going to get a good return on investment. And we see the money moving around the world. We see the huge amount of money put into some companies, big companies that everybody knows, like Tesla or Apple, and sometimes we think, how is this possible? How so much money flows into some companies? Well, they try to give them the security. They try to open and also big hotel operators, all the big tour operators are doing a great job, are giving us a facility to be able to develop. Now, once all this is in place, we need a destination management. We have to look into the future from the operational side of the site of land, where, let's say, we want to create a new resort with 10, 20 hotels and apartments and everything that's surrounded by this. So we need a management team that assures a long-term financial and operational sustainability. Then, of course, we want to coordinate and implement the capacity building. We're dealing here with several international operators, as a tour operator, as a hotel operator, and so on. And we want them to implement, we want them to trespass, to bring the capacity locals, and we try to transmit the know-how for this long term destination management. So all this put together is what brings us to the point that we make feel investors comfortable. We show the investors we have done our homework. We have developed the whole concept. We have the security of the operators. We have the security of the return of investment. And we have the security of looking into the future and seeing that we know what we're doing and we know that our product is sustainable also for the people using it with a future perspective. So thank you very much for your time, and I pass the floor to Patrick again.
Paco, thank you very much for that very interesting presentation. One key aspect of this webinar is to basically, it's primarily aimed, not only, but primarily aimed at Silk Road member states. And it's very good for them to receive the insight of a private tourism stakeholder as to what is needed, the ABC, so to say, of how to attract investments, tourism investments within their country. And I would like to thank you for that very well-structured presentation, and that basically summed it up in 3 key points, which is security, profitability, and long-term sustainability. We have to get those key factors in place. And as you said, liquidity is available, and the framework just needs to be secured in order for development to happen across the Silk Road region. Because as you already mentioned, there's many development banks, many financial institutions, both public and private, looking at the Silk Road, which is gaining increasingly in strategic importance. So we will come back to you again later, once after Natalia's video message, with a few questions that I see are coming in. But for now, I'd like to thank you, and we're going to pass the floor now next to Ms. Natalia Bayona, who is the UNWTO Director of Innovation, Investments and Digital Transformation. I presented the Silk Road perspective on investments. Mr. Paco Boerbaum provided us the private sector's insight, and now Natalia will give us UNWTO's global focus on how UNWTO, as the leading international organization in the field of tourism, is driving tourism investments forward, and especially how her department is linking this with innovation and digital transformation. So please, colleagues from the Academy, whenever you can you please connect us with the video message of Natalia Bayona? Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today with all of you, but especially I would like to thank to my Silk Road colleagues, to Suman Bila, our Director of Technical Cooperation, and of course, he's the brain behind the Silk Road strategy, and of course to Patrick, because he was pushing and pushing to make this possible today. So, my name is Natalia. I am the Director of Innovation, Investments, and Digital Transformation of the UNWTO, and today we have to talk, of course, about an amazing thing that is one of my main passions, that is investments, and how to recover tourism again through investments. First of all, I have to say, where were we in the past? Of course, we were growing ahead 10 years, and of course, we have been delighted because most of the jobs coming to tourism were focalized on gender equality, so a lot of women were hired in the tourism sector, and second of all, of course, everything related to youth. Nonetheless, after those good things were happening, today, after the pandemic, of course, our tourism sector has been facing a lot of challenges. The good news are that beside all the challenges that we are facing today, green investments, venture capital investments, and private equity investments are open to everyone. So the money, the budget are there, not only for from the multilaterals and financial groups, but also from those private purpose-driven companies and investors that wants to invest on sustainable and more strategic projects regarding innovation. Where are we today? As you know, inside the UNWTO, what we do is we open the doors between private and public sector in order to strengthen the way they can develop different high-level impact investments. And today, regarding the Silk Road, I have to say that we have a strong opportunity today. Why Silk Road is an amazing place, as you know better than me: culture-driven strategies, rural tourism development, emerging markets. Those are the type of projects that investors are seeking to invest. The thing is how we're going to make this happen in a more sustainable way, in a more green focused model. So that's key for us. That's why we decided to partner with the IFC, with the International Finance Corporation, where we are building with them a project focused on sustainable and green investments. So for those that are listening to me, that are planning to develop a new hotel, or that are trying to rebuild the business model more focused on hotel and mega infrastructures, focused of course on hotel infrastructure, this is the moment where we need more than ever to propose those projects. Today, we have 7 pilot projects. So of course, we are working with South Africa, we are working with Vietnam, we are working with Indonesia, with India, but of course, they are the first part of the package. So basically, what we are doing, if you want to be part of the pipeline, is the following. First of all, you have to go to the UNWTO website and look for our investments landing page inside our website. Then we have there a small course with 4 webinars where you can learn more about green investments. And of course, if you want to, you can take the EDGE certification, that is a certification from the IFC on green investments. Once you have this first path, you go to the second path, that is, you work with us, with the UNWTO. We fill a form or a survey with all the gaps or all the opportunities that we are looking in every country of the Silk Road, for example. And last but not least, the third one, we need to develop a pipeline of strategic projects from those countries that can be either created or scaled up with investments. The key here is that these investors or the IFC is giving budget focused on rebuilding the things for good. So of course, using renewable energies, waste administration, sustainability, working with communities. So most of the things that I am saying today, you are doing it spectacularly driven. What we need is to know them, of course, in order to develop a more sustainable, innovative, and more inclusive tourism. So, as I was saying, it's key to work together in order to strengthen collaboration between the multilateral sector, private sector, and of course governments through our investment network. What else I can tell you today? Thanks to our flagship program on innovation, we are working more than ever with youth. And as you know, most of your countries are full of talented people. So today, regarding innovation and investments, I have to say that we have launched, and it's still open, so you can, of course, open the floor and massively open the call to help us to spread the voice in your countries. We have launched the first Sustainable Development Goals Global Startup Competition. Of course, our aim is to bring top innovators from all around the world, startups, SMEs, and innovative companies that are bringing solutions to travel better, to travel safe, and of course, to work with us. So in the past, we have done a lot of competitions. 7,000 startups are in our pipeline. And thanks to those entrepreneurs, we have matched them with governments, with investors, and with corporate ventures in order to lead innovation in our sector. So thanks to our job during these times, we have helped the startups to raise more than $51 million. And of course, we have helped them through our innovation forums to spread the voice of what they are doing. We have made some specific challenges where we have been connecting spectacular startups, spectacular entrepreneurs with top managers or top policy makers in order to help us to spread the voice on innovation. So my next invitation for you is to join those competitions, and of course to apply to this open competition. We have only 2 more weeks left, and with that said, of course, we will be pleased to have innovation inside the Silk Road. Of course, we can plan with Patrick and with Suman to develop a startup competition focused on the Silk Road, and of course to bring new type of ventures. But the most important here is, what are we doing inside the Silk Road to create that ecosystem? How those 6 actors are working together. The academia, this is crucial because in the basis of the academia, we have the talent. And of course, most of the good accelerators in the countries are from universities, and the universities are investing on the teams and on those students that are quite innovative in order to scale up and to make real their thoughts and their ideas. Then corporates, of course, travel agencies, tour operators, airlines, etc. How they can work with the startups in order to develop pilot projects where new technologies can be driven. Last but not least, of course, institutions, they are important accelerators, innovation hubs, of course, governments, and last but not least, of course, the investors. We need to spread the voice. We need to empower Silk Road. That's why we need more digital information, because through digitalization, we can spread the voice massively to promote the countries, the rural areas, culture, and of course, the different heritage focused on a more sustainable growth. So, of course, if we do this, and if we join effort together in order to bring top innovative solutions with artificial intelligence, with augmented reality, with virtual reality, Internet of Things, wearables, among others, we can help, for example, the museums that you have already inside the path and the experiences that you already have in the traditional tourism packages. We can scale them up in order to use those technologies to see in 3, 4, or 5 dimensions in different ways about how we can develop new ways of approaching the traveler before they travel. For example, during the World Tourism Day, we signed an agreement with Google because we are developing with them. Google has created an amazing platform that is called Google for Arts and Culture, where all the single towns, heritage, and of course, places that are full of culture are there by geolocalization, so we can find everyone there. So let's take a look, and I invite you more than ever to promote the Silk Road through digital tools, through digital transformation, those spectacular stories that we had from the past. We can, of course, bring new stories to life thanks to the use of technology. Let's use augmented reality to see how a museum or a path looks like. Let's use big data to help to take better decisions. And of course, let's empower talent to bring new technologies alive and to have specialized tourism packages, specialized Silk Road experiences in the digital world. So with that said, of course, I have to say goodbye as of today, because of course time is crucial. So Patrick, I wish you all the best once again. Mr. Villa, thank you for this opportunity, and for all the countries, for all the member states, and for all the people that are listening to us today. My final message that will be, it's our moment. It's the moment of youth. It's the moment of talent. And more than ever, we have to be united to recover tourism again. It's our priority. It's our decision if we align the efforts and if we work together or if not. So count on UNWTO. Let's count on innovation, and let's do innovation and sustainability, the two big words, as part of our new normal. Thanks a ton, and I wish you all the best for this journey.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for the video message. And just to mention once again, we are joined here by her colleague Miguel Angel, who would also be can respond to any questions or queries you may have and about what you just heard. He has also already posted the links on the chat group where you'll be able to access the information just mentioned by Natalia. So thank you very much once again for that very interesting insight that basically presents UNWTO's global strategy on how to raise investments and on how to link it with innovation and digital transformation. So thank you very much for that. And we still have a few minutes time for a few questions. My colleague Nikos on the Silk Road has been collecting them. And Nikos, I pass the floor to you to conclude this session and to filter the questions we have been receiving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you everyone for all this amazing information and your informative presentation. I have to say that we received a lot of questions through many different channels. We won't be able to answer them all, but I would like to make at least one in each one of you. So should I start with you, Patrick, because it's true that what we have here is UNWTO Silk Road member states, mostly. And the question is, how do we, as a UNWTO Silk Road initiative, see the role in driving forward the brand new investments pillar?
Thank you, Nikos. I'm going to be very brief because I want to give enough time to our additional speakers. Basically, we function as a collaborative platform. What does this mean? Basically, what we try to do is to link Silk Road member states with our UNWTO affiliate members, with donor organizations, with sister UN agencies, to basically drive those investments and to channel them towards the right objectives. What we have been doing recently, as I mentioned in my presentation, is to reassess the priorities, the needs and the interests of our member states, be this through online questionnaires, be this through the study of tourism master plans and work documents. And what we try to do is filter this information provided by the member states and to channel them towards the objectives of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and basically bringing interests and needs together. On the one hand side, the UNWTO member states, together with our UNWTO affiliate members, academia, and all other stakeholders from the public and private sector. So basically what we try to do is act as a collaborative platform and bring all those interests together so that we all can benefit from the joint Silk Road tourism concept that we aim to develop. Very briefly said, that is what we try to do. And as mentioned before, we work on 3 key areas. Silk Road knowledge creation, that Natalia mentioned, is highly important because you need the raw data in order to understand what you're developing. Silk Road development strategies, which can be different types of marketing and promotion initiatives, capacity building initiatives and the like. And of course, Silk Road investments pillar, which basically aims to channel these investments and to make them viable through tourism. We do so by collecting all the different information and filtering it. And well, this webinar is just one example of how we try to bring needs and interests together. So yeah, that very briefly, that is how I see our role in raising investments. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And then I'm just this was kind of, as we say, a technical overview of what we do as UNWTO Silk Road Initiative. But I have another question, and I think this will go to you, Mr. Villa, from a member state that says, well, thank you, and we really appreciate that you are innovatively changing the orientation of Silk Road. We would like to know what was the motives, the big motives behind introducing this very interesting new pillar. So, Mr. Villa, you had the leadership in actually moving forward with the investments pillar. So what were the motives?
Voice is breaking. Can you just repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. One member state congratulates us for reorienting so innovatively the Silk Road initiative and the pillars, and ask what were the motives behind introducing this very interesting pillar on investments?
Well, thank you, Nikos, for that, and thank you for asking that very meaningful question. It is not really a motive; it's more a logical progression from where we are. At the Silk Road, I think in the initial days, it was all about creating the brand identity, working on making travel easier, on visa policies, facilitation, publicity, promotion to sort of make the Silk Road products and achieve some success. I think the time at how to develop this in brick and mortar terms. And it is also this element of cooperation in Europe to the Far East are coming together to create a common identity and create a business proposition for all of them, which will bring returns for all. Is a great idea, because I think not only is the Silk Road important, but I think if we are able to do this well and if we see success, there are several other thematic routes that can be transnational. Take the tourism cooperation and international cooperation amongst countries for common benefit at the next level.
Mr. Villa, thank you very, very much. I have to say that we couldn't listen all of it. So when the connection is better, I will come back to you just to clarify, because from what we got, there are some very, very interesting points. But now I have a question from Paco. Paco, this question comes from a destination, and they say, what should a master plan, as the one that you presented in your presentation, what should a master plan for investments entail? And what is the role of destinations in the creation of such a master plan?
Excuse me, Nikos, can you ask me the question again, please?
Yes, this comes from a destination.
Yes.
And they say, what should a master plan for investments entail? And what is the role of the destinations themselves in the creation of such a master plan?
Okay, when we look at a tourism master plan, we have to look into the future. We have to see how is the sector changing, what new technologies are coming, and what is the expectation of the country, how much the country wants to push tourism in a sustainable way. So once we have defined this, and we have defined what kind of tourism we can have, depending on the area we are in, we have a mountain, we have beach, we have a lot of different types of tourism, even we have city tourism. So once all these aspects are defined, and a lot more that have to come all together, then it's a political decision to say, okay, this is what we want to achieve, and this is what we want to integrate in this master plan. And this is the path that everybody has to follow. We have to create a master plan with a vision, let's say, for the next 20 years. This means that, of course, we can change the master plan on the way. We can adapt it, because nothing is firm. But all stakeholders, everybody that's interested in the investment, in the development, knows what the direction is and what the goal is. And this is very important to include all these parts in this master plan. It's like the working tool for everybody that is involved.
Thank you, Paco. And well, I hope this shed some lights. I know we are over our time, but I will try to steal some of your time and to all the panelists, because these questions are very, very interesting. And I think at least two more of them we need to respond to. This question goes to Natalia. So Miguel Angel, I think that you can try to answer that. So the question says, what would the steps and recommendations be for Silk Road destinations on initiating innovation ecosystems that can attract investments?
Yeah, it's a big question. So just before to answer that question, I would like to emphasize that from the area of investments, what we are doing in UNWTO are three main things: is investment network, investment promotion, and investment mobilization, which goes along the lines that Natalia was explaining, and it goes and overlaps and align with the strategies that you mentioned before in this presentation. So in that sense, we are developing, of course, a strong network of investors from the multilateral cooperation as well from the private and the public sector. In the promotion area, this is relevant. We are developing different investment forums, which actually help to answer your question. And we are developing different forums in different of the 5 regions that we work at. And the third part that we are doing is related with capacity building. We are developing different guidelines. As a matter of fact, next week we are going to launch a report that we team up with the Financial Times, and to actually track the foreign direct investments in tourism. So we are doing that for the last 3 years, and it's really interesting to see actually in this pandemic how this will affect the FDI towards tourism. And this is really important because it helps us to get data, but to make decisions on how we are going to intervene. And the third part is the investment mobilization, where we kind of match and we become the liaison between these investors and the pipeline of projects. To answer your question, as you know, tourism is a very heavily labor-intensive activity that has different subsectors. And based on that, what we are doing in the last 3 years with the innovation and investment departments is to map out these stakeholders and trying to bring them together. So that's, I think, the first step to understand that tourism is multidimensional, and we have to be able to understand who are the main key partners on this matter. And the second point that is very, very relevant with the intervention that Paco was mentioning in his presentation is the governance. It's super, super important to understand what are not just the pipeline and the potential plans that we might have by regions, but also to understand what are the incentives and who is in charge of those incentives and who is in charge to be a catalyst for this process, because there is a lot of different approaches depending on the countries that we work with. And there's the investment promotion agencies that has the role. There's sometimes the tourism ministers that have more like a regulatory role, and other ministers are in charge of that. So those are the questions that we need to answer. And the third part will be related with the trends. In the investment guidelines that we are developing, we actually start by identifying the key trends for the next 10 years globally. And we also try to map out and track the investments so we can actually understand what are the trends, and we can actually match those trends and try to take advantage of those trends with our main assets and opportunities that we have in the countries that we work. And based on that, of course, we can develop these opportunities with the different stakeholders and start to develop different strategies for benchmark, and also to create a roadmap for investors. So I think there's a lot of things to cover on that. Just wanna tell you that we are developing these guidelines. Is going to be launched on the 22nd of October with the Financial Times. We are going to send you an invitation. And then the next week after that, we are going to be launching our UNWTO investment guidelines, which actually we are developing 3 series. The first series is based on how to enable the frameworks for investments, which is answering actually these questions that you were asking before. The second series is based on case studies, and the third series is based on policy making. So we are working on that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Miguel. Well, let's say that this is a promise to all Silk Road destinations that are here with us and to all member states, that we will make sure as a UNWTO Silk Road Initiative and UNWTO as a whole and the Innovation and Investments Department as well, that we will follow up with you and we will make sure that you will receive these guidelines. And then absolutely we will see how we take it from there. Mr. Villa, because we lost you before, I would like to see now if the connection is better. And you mentioned that this wasn't just motives, this was a logical progression. Could you please elaborate on that? Why now we're focusing on investments on Silk Road?
Trying to keep my video off. It is a logical progression work that we have done over the years. In the initial days when we started this, create a product, we create an idea, we create visa processes. So all of that work has been done and it has reached some amount of critical mass. So I think that the investments we can get to further flesh out the Silk Road and build on the brand identity so that it becomes a product that delivers for all of the countries. And the UNWTO is very keen on the Silk Road, not just because it's a great opportunity for all of these transnational cooperation, but if we succeed well in this, we would thematic routes across the world, and this would really be
Thank you, Mr. Bill. I think we still have some connection problems. So I will just move to my last questions to Paco. Paco, there were many. I can follow up with you later on to see if we can solve some of the other questions. But one question says, and I don't know if this is more for a public sector perspective on investments or for a private sector, that would be you, but you can tell us about your experience. It says, how and at what stage can the local communities be consulted to give their feedback and input on investments plans, on tourism investments plans?
How, say it again, please. How
so the question is how the local communities can be consulted to give their feedback on investments plans.
How they can be consulted. This is very.
And are they?
Yeah, you mean if you can consult them? This is very difficult from our perspective. Think about it, please, that we are private investors. We are developers. We're real estate developers in the tourism sector. So what does that mean? That means that we have to go ahead before the investor comes. We have to create a product. So what do we need to create a product? We need to know what's going to be in this area. What can I create there? What is the potential? That means, in other words, where is the master plan? So I can have a look at it. I can see what the development will be into the future. And then looking at this master plan, I will create my product. I will create a resort, a hotel, a business hotel. I will create an investment of 20 to 50 million euros. So once I have this creation done, then I apply an operator on it. The local government, let's put it this way, they only accompany this. They only can tell me, yes, go ahead with your idea and we can develop it. We have an example. Our company bought about a month ago a piece of land in a city in Germany, and we did a presentation to the local government, and they said they liked it very much. It was public in the newspapers, and a week later we already have offers of investors that wants to buy it from us because the product is there. And some operators approach us asking, can we operate this opportunity? Can we come into it? So it's the local government, it has a side effect only. It has to prepare, let's say, the master plan. It has to prepare the way, and of course, collaborate to be able to afford all the necessary permits to be able to develop it. Because without a construction permit, without an operational permit, you can't do anything. I hope I answer your question.
Yes, yes. As I understand, this would be a responsibility from the destination themselves when they're preparing the master plan to make sure that the local communities have given their voice and their feedback on how they feel that the tourism investment master plan should be for the destination. And then you come as private sector and you're actually implementing or giving you're realizing what this master plan has as initial ideas. Thank you, Paco.
Yes,
thank you.
yes, and there are two other things we should not forget. We have the legal aspect that has to be very clear because nobody wants to lose this money, and we have the incentive part, how we can support the tourism development. At the beginning, it has to be a little bit of incentive. It has to be a support to implement know-how, to capacity building, to make things easier. This is just what you all said before. We all have to work together. Once we work together, it will work much better. It will be much easier for all parts.
Excellent. Thank you, Paco. And now, Patrick, I think we have stole a lot of time for both speakers and attendees, but I think the conversation was very interesting. So back to you for the closing remarks.
Yes, thank you very much, Nikos, also for filtering those questions. We are already 16 minutes over time, but I have the impression that this webinar could go on and on because the questions are coming in and they're very interesting, and also the insights of our panelists are very, very interesting. But of course, we have to keep it short because we're already over time, as said. So I would just like to conclude here by thanking all speakers and panelists, Mr. Billa, of course, Mr. Paco Burbaum, Natalia Bayona, and Miguel Angel for being here today, for your time and very valuable insights. I would also like to thank all the participants who have registered via Zoom or who are following us over UNWTO's Academy channel. Should you have any questions, further insights, further inputs, please send us to silkroad@unwto.org. We would be pleased to further address these questions and pass it on to the whoever speaker you would like to address them to. And I'd also like to finally thank UNWTO Academy, Tijana, Arlene, Lucy Gardner for all your help and support throughout these last few weeks in organizing and in arranging this webinar. It's highly appreciated. And well, that's basically all. I said my thanks to all, and I would just like to conclude by wishing you all a very, very pleasant day ahead and week ahead. And yes, hopefully be able to see you all soon again at another Silk Road webinar, maybe this time focused on another topic. So thank you all once again, and please take care and stay safe. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.